born in San Antonio, Texas. I was born in 1956. I'm one of 9 children of my mother and father, Joe and Ana Maria. Let me restate that. Joe and Ana Marie Marinez. I'm the 6th child. I was born here on the west side, but by the time I was 4, we moved to the near north side, which was just north of Hildebrand. It was that was the end of the town at that point, and we were the only one of 2 Mexican families in an Irish Catholic neighborhood. Because it was unsafe for me to be home in the afternoon without my mom and dad there, because the neighbors were kind of, violent. My grandmother would take care of me. So I would come back here to the calle Brazos and Veracruz in the Alexander Pache courts, and myself, along with on and off about 17 different cousins, close to the same age, we'd all go to after school at my grandmother's 1-bedroom public housing unit. It was very joyous, and it was also a great learning experience for me, in that I met so many different types of people, and there were so many different generations around me. So, I have a really weird understanding of activism. For me, my mother and father were both union organizers. My father was in the a postal carrier, and my mother was a seamstress in the early. And there was an awareness of everything. When my father would bring home folks from different races and colors, and my mother was always very about learning. It was simply learning. Every experience, there wasn't a bad experience. You just have to learn something from it. I don't know, activism. So I remember very early around the kitchen table, my older brothers and sisters would talk over current topics, and we're in the middle of the 60s, and I was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and my brothers were in high school and were heading to college, well, supposed to head to college, and my sister was amazing student, and brought home all these questions. She was all, she'd always pose questions, and I would sit at the table and listen. They were all, my older brothers and sisters are all extremely, they're bilingual. They were all, but we moved to the north side, and so I understood, but I had a lot of shame about speaking Spanish. So I think, and in my family, people knew I was, I like boys. They were like, oh, that's Mikey, he likes boys. And that was it. There was, and I believe that's a kind of Mexican response. We're in a family, we don't get thrown out. We deal with who we are. And my brothers and sisters were very good to me, but they were also, could be very hard to me. But I was always aware. And so activism, helping other people is my grandmother. Mm-hmm. Helping other people wasn't given a name. It was simply what you did. If you had power, if you had ability, you provided it. You had to do things that for the good of the community. And we're a Mexican American community in South Texas, probably near the border of Mexico and Texas. We're given no choice. We either hide and become part of a country that didn't want us, or we stood up and listened and kind of put voice to all the things they were telling us that this country was about. How did I come into activism? It was very fun. I'm gay, and there was a big push, kind of fascist push about keeping gays in a position of a mental illness and criminal behavior, and uh, my generation didn't believe in that. And there was that. And, my first demonstrations were around, uh, in Houston, around Anita Bryant, this insane Trump-like creature that was wanting gays out of the schools and gays out of the libraries and gays out of the country. And so when I moved to Houston, it was a city that was growing exponentially. Thousands of people were moving every week, and all of us came to Houston to start a new life. And part of that new life was to be out and proud. And I got involved with community elections, and around that time I saw a publication by Larry Kramer in a gay bar that talked about an illness, a disease that was killing gays. And I remember it very clearly. I was in a leather bar, somewhere where I'd go to brunch. You were allowed to go to brunch in the leather bar on Sunday, but you couldn't go in there without leather the rest of the week. And I saw a stand, and it showed this graft of this disease, and I was appalled. And because at that point, because I was brown, I understood who's going to get this illness. And so, is it just gays? Is this an illness? It's not. And so I realized it was going to be my family. It was going to be my parents. It was going to be everything. And so that started the journey. I left Houston. I came to San Antonio. I went to school a bit. I learned and reconnected with friends. I went to Austin. And there I became very involved in the AIDS. And I was, as a founder of Austin, a founding member of Austin ACT UP, because Austin is the capital of Texas. It was incumbent on us to let the state capital know that they weren't funding AIDS. They were denying AIDS. They were putting out things how they thoughts like, if you get AIDS, you deserve it. It was a edict from God. These were statesmen that were saying this. These were people who had been elected who were saying this thing. And then denying funding that was coming from the federal government to people. And so our ACT UP was a theater-based ACT UP. It was performance art. And I was given proudly the position, nobody else had a position, director of strategies. And I created performance art pieces in the streets, in the Capitol, at the governor's mansion, all around. It was more of like an art school than it was a protest. But I also came to know some important organizers and other things. I met Rebecca Flores, who is at that time was the head of the Farmers Workers Union. I met Cesar Chavez, who I told, sometimes I just gotta have a grape. and he looked at me and said, I'll know. Like when one of our performance pieces was to follow a state senator who was vehemently against gay, lesbians, and the AIDS funding bill. And he actually, the thing was called the Death Watch. And we put on one of those skeletons that we'd gotten we cut out of the Chronicle in Austin, a newspaper. And then we started walking around behind for 6 weeks. We followed all of these folks who were against funding and just made their lives miserable. So everywhere they went, performance art, we would be behind them. And the one time and there was a bunch of different people assigned to a bunch of different characters, but a young woman was swung at by one of the state senators. And that was a kind of real thing. We also, in the early 90s, went to, when I was in San Antonio, went to the Republican convention. It was for George Bush. And ACT UP was allowed to march. and this queer contingent of people and its supporters were allowed to march. And we marched to the Alamo Dump where they're holding the convention, and we thought we were going to get a chance to go into the convention. But what was actually happening was we were being corralled into a dead-end street, and then out of nowhere appeared a bunch of police on horses and swinging and breaking people's heads. And that was not a peaceful moment, but we tried to keep it peaceful. The way we escaped was my friends who I was with and I jumped on a bus. We jumped on a city bus and escaped. But some people were seriously injured by the swatting Houston police. I never get to tell that story. You know, I went from being simply a queer band to a queer man of color to a Chicano. Coming back to San Antonio, I realigned with the Guadalupe, and the artists there were all amazing. I consider David Gonzalez, one of the founders of the Guadalupe, my kind of spiritual center. He's a great man and doesn't talk loud and comes forward with information. He holds our history and he's willing to share it with you. And that's what he did for me. But what he's also done for me, I used to call him Papa, and he called me Hijo. And there was that was a sincere feeling, and he always made sure he saw me, he talked to me, and he still does. You know, being on board of the Museo del Westside, we run into each other. Kathy Vargas, oh my God, Kathy Vargas, the whole generation of queer artists, me included, were brought out. David Zamora Costas, Franco Mondini, Ito Romo, Michael Marinez, just the list goes on and on. All of us, you know, from this time, Kathy Vargas pushed us and made sure that we were doing the right thing. Not all of us were able to be controlled, but and she put me on several boards of activist organizations, and it was. I was, you know, the early 90s were amazing for me. I got to experience sitting on an NEA panel. I got to experience being part of a people of color funding organization out of New York called the Saguaro Fund. I was introduced to really great filmmakers and great leaders. In that I was one of those people that people were looking for to connect, so we could all connect our issues. I have to tell you that throughout my work, my AIDS work, my biblical work, there has always been a women's community available to me. And it's always the women's community that has been most that has made things clearer and clearer to me. And it was at that point, I think, from those points that I understood how important feminism was, but also feminism that not only liberated women, but liberated men, liberated transgenders, liberated folks who are gender neutral. And that if we can't support women and the rights of women to even their own body, then we will suffer. I think that's my activism. That's, you know, I work with right now young men and men a lot. I work a lot with young women, and I have two wonderful young women that I've mentored that are out in the world. They're doing good things, and I think that's what my role is now. I don't think it's being on a line. I think it's thinking about how to make what has been dealt to us better. And there's no doubt in my mind that we are in a momentary time of fascism in this country. The importance to remember is it's momentary. It won't be momentary if we don't start thinking of it as that and start resisting. We have to find those places that we recollect things we've dropped and we thought we never used again. Things that are important to that place we come from. And one of them is an ability to stand up when you can. Stand up and be heard and seen. And understand that racism doesn't go away, sexism doesn't go away, homophobia, anti-Semitism, they all, in the middle of one of those decades, it was all post-feminism and no, they will always be here. And we have got to understand that we've always got to be alert, vigilant, defiant. And that, I think, is what my activism has always been. Challenges. This is really funny. I lived in a period when people were, on all levels, were trying to rectify the inequalities. And so, for me, being out and working and addressing issues and bringing them to the square, or, to the plaza, was easy. It's not the same as what happened to people in the 60s or the 30s or during all those places where we have stood, citizenry have stood up and fought. It was an easy movement, but it's also made important because with age there are people dying. The sense of urgency is right there at all times. I am one of 3 people my age still alive that I know. 3 gay men. One of us has HIV. One of us, is constantly reassessing his status. And then there's me, and everybody else I know died between 18 and 24 years of age. So that was the thing that moved us all. People were dying. But people are dying and will be dying from this current state. There's nothing more tragic or overwhelming than to hear of a country tearing families apart and then losing children. How is that possible? And why do we let it go on? For a country who is, in our bidding, is blowing up entire culture to basically create the genocide that they tried to create at Wounded Knee. The same battle cries. Remember the Alamo. I come from a home where the Alamo is. And all I got to remember off the Alamo is the unfairness of people attempting to conquer other people. Almost all queer organizing was left organizing. They were concerned with, the organizing that I came from was, I was trained by Quakers and radical Jews, left Jews. That's where my training comes from. And it was always fair, and it was always about justice, and it was justice for all. It was not about pulling themselves out and separating from the oppressions that were occurring. I also have to tell you that a lot of the organizing came from the feminist movement. Women were owning the battle, and they were then in those learning groups and reading groups and gatherings. They were learning that oppression doesn't end with a gender. It's big. It's everything, and that nothing can be corrected for one if it isn't corrected for everyone.
Focus now.
My focus now. My focus now is I'm from San Antonio. I've been everywhere. I've lived in New York. I've lived everywhere. I come back here because I'm spiritually tied to this ground. And this ground is spiritually tied to us, our bodies, our brown bodies, our bodies that were uh, involved in the earth, that were stewards of the earth. And I don't have a word for it in Spanish. I don't know what the word is. If you could find it, please send it to me. But we are stewards of the earth. We are the protector of this earth. And the powers that be are the ones ruining this earth. So that's my fight back. Be good with the earth. What's happening in the world right now is that moment of being terrorized, to terrorize even the simplest moment in people's lives so that they will become inactive. And we've got to understand that the whole idea of what's happening right now is to terrorize you. You are to be scared. Your culture is to do nothing but scare you. Mm-hmm. And so what you got to remember is put it back in the box and think through it. Think through it. Find people to think through it with. I don't listen to talk radio. I very seldom listen to news. I'm not interested in news as entertainment. And that's what it is. They're attempting to make money off of stories, and the more salacious, the most outrageous, the most terrifying stories are what we're talking about. I'm not interested. I want to know how to get back on track. I want to know how to have communities feel safe and have homes and live good lives. The strategies that are being used by the powers that be are no different from all the ones we've been through. It's just a repeat. Bash us in, bash us out. Bash us in, bash us out. And we have got to start not only responding, but delaying it, crippling it. Fascism can't happen unless we don't pay attention to all of our people. Fascism can't happen if we are aware of inequalities and try to give power to the remedies that we put forth. What this administration has done in my country has been to take away all the corrections to inequality. That's the first thing they've done. And that should tell us something. That should put us on our thing that we have to be better at recognizing the needs and wants of other people. We've got to. It can't be all about us. And it can't all be about what we want or what we need. No more stuff. Now it's got to be about being principled, about being fair, about understanding that the only way that we're ever going to see a way out of this is by truly ending all of those places. And being aware also that in ending, we also have to be aware that it always will be there. It will always somehow, but we can't give it power. And I love a good librarian, because a good librarian is who we should be. Librarians are just and fair, and they have a code of honor. It's better than, watching dragon movies or space invader movies, being a librarian. And I'm dyslexic, so that says something. Be your own hero. Work towards making yourself better and helping other people be better. Technology right now is unleashed. It's just there's nothing stopping people putting out all those things. But if you have a core of understanding of what's right and wrong, and what's fair and not fair, I think we can make through it. There's always going to be somebody out there trying to sell you an oil made from snakes that cures everything. Just don't listen. Or better yet, take it for what it is, entertainment. Laugh at it, move on from it, be a better you. So during the pandemic, we noticed a real rise in domestic violence and mental health issues. And at that time, folks were coming in to buy great chunks of the West Side. And they weren't from the West Side. They were speculating. And domestic violence was at an all-time high. And getting people out into the gardens was an important thing. And it worked. People were coming in, they would, confess themselves practically, to the earth. And so we've kept going. It's about healing. It's about helping. It's about self-healing and recognizing that we are people of the dirt. We are right here. Personas del tierra.